Civilization is like a tree. How a tree withstands a storm depends on how deep are its roots. The roots of Indian philosophy are very deep. Therefore, the ancient Indian civilization survived the winds of time. To understand the depth of Indian philosophies, let us compare them with Greek philosophy. The meaning of philosophy for Greeks is love of knowledge, whereas in India, philosophy is a means of self-realization. Philosophy is Darshan here, meaning to see the world and the self within. The purpose is freedom from suffering, whereas Western philosophy is an intellectual pursuit. For the Greeks, the soul of a person is an entity of intellect, whereas in India, it is the Atma, which is beyond intellect. How far beyond? Let us understand from this diagram. This orange color represents Indian philosophy, and the blue, Western philosophy. The red line divides the outer and the inner world of our being. The knowledge of the outer world is received by the sensory organs and through the aid of tools, and the mind, intellect, etc. receive it within us. But where are we? Who am I? For the Greek, I is the intellect. In India, the I is beyond the intellect. The seer is standing at the far right end, totally detached. It can see everything. For the seer, everything is outside. But for the Western observer, he can see only up to the intellect level. No matter how much intellectual activity there is, the intellect cannot take you beyond the intellect itself. Yoga helps us to disentangle the self from the bondages of nature. The self can then see the outer and inner world dispassionately. This orange graph is created on the basis of Samkhya, the philosophy of yoga. There are several philosophies in India, and Samkhya is one of them. Light, action, and inertness are the root characteristics of nature, Prakriti, and with these, the material world is made. Consciousness is called Purusha. Prakriti and Purusha are the two root elements responsible for the creation and dissolution of the world. The world exists within them.
व्यवहारिक स्तर पर तो जो वेदांत है वो सांख्य दर्शन ही है। जगत है वो ब्रह्म का विवर्त है और माया का परिणाम। ये जो वेदांत में माया है ये और कोई नहीं, प्रकृति ही है, क्योंकि माया भी वहाँ त्रिगुणात्मक है। अब हुआ ये कि जो प्रकृति सांख्य में अत्यंत बलशाली और प्रभावशाली तत्व था, वो वेदांत में निरीह हो गया, और जो चेतन तत्व वेदांत में प्रभावशाली है वो सांख्य दर्शन में निरीह है।
The Upanishads give an example of white, red and black goats for the three behaviors of Sattva, Raja and Tama. Can Sankhya represent all the Indian streams of philosophies? The answer lies in this real story. Once an American scholar, Gerald Larson, visited Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj in Varanasi. Pandit Kaviraj is considered an erudite authority on Indian dharma sadhana and spirituality in modern times. Gopinath ji asked, "What are you studying?" Larson said, "I am studying one of the ancient philosophies of India, Sankhya." Gopinath ji interrupted and said, "Sankhya is not one of the philosophies of India. Sankhya is the philosophy of India." This documented conversation confirms the extensive influence of Sankhya in India. So this diagram is made on the basis of Sankhya philosophy. And this blue line, whether it is the rationalist or experientialist, the modern existentialist or empiricist, Western scholars could never go beyond this point of intellect. Not even the psychologists. The ego that is understood by Freud is very limited. The ego, as seen by yoga, is ahankar, a sense of existence and is realized by Asmitanugat Samadhi. In reality, we spend our lives entrapped in sensory emotions and mental and intellectual dualism. Yoga calls this type of life a prasanna, a dissatisfied life. One who becomes prasanna, satisfied, becomes a seer. The one who remains at the level of intellect becomes a consumerist. A civilization based on consumerism leads to dissatisfaction, and that of the seers to satisfaction. A consumerist civilization is human-centric, and nature is seen as a commodity for consumption. Professor Rummel of Hawaii University studied the destructive nature of humans. He studied three main world cultures to see their relationships between humanity and nature. First, the Greek Western Judeo-Christian cultural system. Second, the Indian Hindu-Buddhist culture. And third, the Chinese Confucian Taoist culture. He says, a major theme of Western culture is our separation from nature. Nature is hostile to us. It is a domain of facts to be studied, explored, and exploited. Chinese mainstream culture sees it as an arrangement between humans and nature. The Chinese philosophy, both Taoism and Confucianism, followed a middle way. Neither nature nor our soul was predominant. Rather, humanity and nature must harmonize. By contrast, the major perspective of Indian culture is one of release from nature. Our bhog, consumerism, and moksha, absolute freedom, is in her hands. The yogi in his samadhi sees only her dharmas. Prakriti, nature, is the guru of dharma. What is dharma? There is no word for dharma in English. The concept of dharma is found only in Indian culture. The Vedic seers saw a governing order in the universe. They called it Rita. Rita is upholding, the chariot of the world. Upholding is dharna in Sanskrit. Therefore, it is dharma. Dharma upholds existence, that is, sata. Therefore, dharma is satya. Satya or dharma is the first step of yoga. It is also the final summit. In Patanjali Yoga, the practice begins with satya and achieves rita by ritambhara pragya, the wisdom of reality. When Buddha says, I saw the ancient path and traversed upon it, he was referring to the path of dharma. The path is tough without cutting off worldly attachments. Remembering this path, Gautam Buddha became emotional and said, Oh, I renounced and left my parents and wife tearful. As Prince Siddhartha, he had experimented with several traditional techniques to attain knowledge. Once he even practiced the severe penance of Chandrayan Vrata. He would eat morsels of food counted according to the phases of the moon. On the first day, eating only one morsel in 24 hours, 14 morsels on the 14th day, and 15 morsels on full moon day, gradually reducing it to nothing by the day of the dark moon. His body was reduced to a skeleton. When he tried to get up, he collapsed and fainted. People thought Prince Siddhartha had left his body. A messenger ran to break the news to King Shuddhodhan. O king, your son has passed away. Ever since Siddhartha left home, tears in the king's eyes had never dried. With a trembling face and wet eyes, the king replied, Messenger, this cannot be true. My son will be Dharma Chakravartin, the supreme exemplar of Dharma. The fort, in which Patanjali securely protected his disciples from the clutches of death, is known as Yama. For Buddha, it was Shil. Yamraj, the king of Yama, is also called Dharmaraj. Dharma protects the one who protects Dharma. This rule has existed from time immemorial. The upholder of Dharma, Siddhartha, was not to die. He embraced the middle path and became a Chakravartin. Dharma is revealed to dedicated meditators. Buddha taught Dharma and Dhyana throughout his life. He meditated so that Dharma would be revealed to him. Today we are doing meditation, but without practicing Dharma. Therefore, our meditation does not bear fruit. Our uncontrolled senses destroy our meditation like the deer ravaging the fields.
अरे अपने अपने रस के भोगी अपने अपने रस के भोगी जुग रहे न्यारा न्यारा जतन बावरा रे मेरे गाने खेत उजाड़ा जतन बावरा रे मेरे गाने खेत उजाड़ा.
The Jatan of Kabir, the Yama of Patanjali, the Shil of Buddha, and the Mahavratas of Mahavir are the practice of Dharma. Non-violence is the supreme Dharma, but sometimes violence done to protect Dharma is non-violence. Dharma can change with changing circumstances. Therefore, we find contradictory statements in Dharma Shastras or Smritis.
So Shruti is the Sanatana Dharma, the Vedas, which are permanent, eternal. And Smritis are the texts that are changing, things that happen in history. New events happen, new laws are made, society changes. So all that we learn about society, politics, history, science, human beings comes under Smriti. And all we know about the ultimate reality comes under Shruti. So this is an extraordinary feature about our tradition. It is neither something fixed in history, nor is it something that's so permanent that it cannot handle change and progress and research and new developments. The Hindu Dharma, which is the modern term for the Vedic tradition, is both permanent, eternal, has a solid foundation, and it's also constantly evolving, adapting with the newest things happening in time. So if somebody says that a particular tradition is no longer useful, no longer meaningful, well, we can create a new Smriti. There is no law against it. In fact, the people who wrote the ancient Smritis themselves said that these Smritis are for a certain time and a certain context, and every period of time, every location, every situation must develop its own Smritis.
Many Smritis have been created according to the needs of changing times and places. Dharma Shastras put limits of time and space on behavior with respect to nature. For example, people will not commit any violence at places of pilgrimage. They will not plow fields with bulls on certain days. They will not eat meat on certain days of the Hindu calendar. They will consume from nature only that much which it can replenish by itself. The female of every species represents Mother Earth. Killing females means the continuity of life is severed, and it is against Dharma. Sometimes killing a male animal is also against Dharma. These people are singing the legendary story of King Bharathari. Today, King Bharathari has wounded a male deer. But in this killing of a male deer, something wrong happened. The female deer were following him. "O king, kill any one of us instead. Our flock has only one male remaining, and today you are also taking him. How will our posterity continue? How will we survive in darkness like orphans?" The king ignored them and killed the deer. The female deer then cursed him. "O king, what has happened to us, may the same happen to you." Then The king found Yogi Gorakhnath. He renounced the world, and his wife Pingala lost her husband. The king had broken the continuity of the Deer clan. Now, his posterity had also ended. Humans have broken the continuity of wildlife on Earth. Can the human race survive this? From ancient times, Indians have known that if they do not follow their dharma towards nature, then nature will also not follow her dharma towards humans. Instead, she can create devastation, pandemics, and untimely deaths. All the major dharmic religions of India believe in the theory of karma. As you sow, so you shall reap. This causation is the basis of reincarnation. Reincarnation is the result of karmic actions. Marxists do not believe this, and despotic Marxists have been responsible for enormous killings. Extremist jihadis and crusaders also did not believe in karma. To justify their brutal massacres, they think God will forgive or reward them. In the Shraman tradition of India, there is no God. There is no one between you and your deeds, so there is no question of depending on him. As for the Hindus, the gods of the Hindus do not sit somewhere above and dictate to mankind. They take human form and teach by example and take responsibility for their karma. The way a cow finds her calf among thousands in a herd, in the same way, your karma will find you. Therefore, most people in India act according to their karma, thoughtfully. It is said that India is the land of karma and not of pleasure alone. Some people find pleasure in exploiting others and over-consuming natural resources. The theory of karma says pleasure creates the bondage of delusion, that is, moha. So what is freedom? Freedom is the removal of delusion, that is, the kshaya of moha, moksha. The goal of moksha transforms the direction of life. Faiths that say the beauties of heaven are for believers and the atrocities of hell for non-believers have brought horrific bloodbaths on earth. Renowned Professor Rudolf Rummel of Hawaii University studied the data for 30 years on democide, that is, governments or groups killing in collective violence and wars. His period of study was from the 5th century BC to the 20th century. He was surprised to find that until the 13th century, there was almost no sign of democide or mass murders in India, barring the Kalinga War. Democide is the big cause of the annihilation of civilizations. Dharma is the root of Indian civilization. Its roots are so deep that in spite of horrendous invasions, India still stands tall. When civilizations of the world were busy pillaging, when empires were destroying each other, when men were massacring others to impose their ideology or religion, India was flourishing with prosperity and harmony. Here there was not one, but hundreds of kings, often fighting against each other. Here there were hundreds of doctrines and philosophies, all debating with each other. During a heated debate or in battles, there may have been some killing, but there is no evidence of any democide. It may seem inconceivable that there have been many wars here, but no massacres. This was true of India. Wars would start at sunrise and stop at sunset. Weapons soaked in poison, heated on fire, torturous to the body were forbidden. To assault a person who is fighting another person was prohibited. A charioteer could fight with a charioteer. A foot soldier only with a foot soldier. A person in armor could not assault a man without armor. The strong and the mighty could not hit the weak or childless. A soldier with damaged arms, or in pain, or wounded, or frightened or running away was not allowed to be assaulted. A soldier whose bow or vehicle had broken or had been captured should be medically treated and sent back home. This was the thousands of years old Dharma of war, not the Geneva Convention of 1949. Such rules of war were never made by any other civilization on earth. Hindu Dharma, which made these rules, never allowed democides to happen. They gave refuge and shelter to the persecuted minorities of the world. The same Dharma was later minimized in the Constitution of India. Dharma, whose goal is ahimsa, is not seen in any of the articles of the Indian Constitution. While socialism has been highlighted in its preamble, the Dharma, which taught our ancestors the highest virtues of life, is missing from the law books and courts of India. But at last, the Dharma incarnate has found an abode for himself. The epic Ramayana has been sung by thousands of generations. The number of dramas that are performed of it has no parallel in the world. Every year, it is played in almost every village of India. Thousands of its katha and discourses continue round the year. Sanskrit, Prakrit, Tamil, Telugu, there is no language without a version of Ramayana. There is no place in India that is left untouched by the impact of the Ramayana. The expanse of the Ramayana reminds us of the cultural boundaries of ancient India. Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, villagers, scholars, illiterates, all have left their imprints on the epic Ramayana. Ramayana is the deepest and longest continuity of India.